for the very first night. It's called Oops, I bought tickets to see the Killers again. Hello, it is nearly midday. It is 11:16 a.m. and I've just made myself a lovely brunch. It is the morning after the night before. Killers last night, night one, was absolutely amazing, and then I slept for a very long time, and then this morning ate some strawberries and blueberries and did some work on my phone. One of the things that reminds me that I'm British, even like I don't feel very connected to that identity a lot of the time, is when I travel, I just become more British. I like have my cups of tea, and this is the breakfast I make myself. So today is about recovery, and also it's a work day. So it's about recovery and work. I've got loads of emails to write today actually. And then I've got to do a couple of episodes of Dear Hank and John prep. It won't be for a little bit still, but we're coming up on 400 episodes, which is wild. So yeah, trying to get ahead of a couple of weeks of prep of that podcast. And then the other thing I have to do is film a video that the UN Refugee Agency is doing, UNHCR. I'm staying at Beckett Lock, one of the Lock Living like apart hotels, and it's really nice because it means I've got like a kitchen, just a bit more space. Very pleased with it, and it's really close to the 3 Arena. I don't even know what to say about last night because it really didn't. I need to eat my breakfast. Maybe I'll come back with thoughts after my breakfast. But I also really need to go on with work, so that's like I'm thinking about 17 different priorities at once. There's a yoga class I think today on Thursdays at 6 p.m. So actually maybe I'll work, do yoga, come up for dinner, watch Bridgerton, rest, recover, go to sleep. That's perfect. That's a perfect plan. What a perfect plan. This is the workout room. I really need to stretch after every gig. This is how the room is looking on this day. Electric blue. Electric blue. Ugh, whole of the moon. This is night 2. I'm not sure about the makeup, but the theme in my head is electric blue, space gargoyle. I like it. I'm happy. You okay? Oh. Oh, babe, I feel like it's got a broken wing or something.
Trying to drown.
Oh, its little hand. Oh, yeah, just put it in front of it, maybe. Oh, hello. Thank you for the offering. Just today, like be a lady tonight. It's the vibe, and then trainers because my feet need a break of shoes. You know when you wear the same shoes for too many days and your feet are just like, they're not tired of them, they just want a different shape. That's how I feel today. So, earrings from Mexico, little heart, little diamond, little rebel, oh you can't see the diamond, little diamond. Vintage Sam's down jacket. This is the morning, just the situation. I've packed up almost everything. Last bits. This is the outfit, same as the first day. I am still kind of in shock, but I will update later. New friend of the family. one night's sleep at home. And then today I'm off to Manchester. So before I'm on the second week, which is also like a bananas week, I have the Eras tour on Sunday back in London. But that's all for a different time. Before that happens, I wanted to reflect on like the first week, and there were a few things I want to talk about, especially about the show not last night, 2 nights ago. So the shows were on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday in Dublin. Father's Day was yesterday, Sunday. The Killers are amazing anyway at doing different set lists, different nights. Like they know people will come to more than one, and they mix it up, and you know, they have the classics, but they also, they know they have a lot of material as well. I think there's like a confidence in their body of work. Anyway, they mix stuff up. But for these shows, they did 3 completely different shows with different musical arrangements, different surprises. And something that was particularly magical about the whole thing for me was walking in, not knowing, firstly, like the stage was totally different, just like not knowing what was coming next, and also how much they were enjoying us also not knowing what was coming next. And I think that's something that I enjoy even when I go to loads of them. Like, I know when the cues are, but a lot of the crowd doesn't know what's coming. So, you know, I know what the weird sound means or what the intro means. But in this show, I knew nothing. And I think they really played with that and really honoured that and made it such a special time for absolutely everyone. There was so much love and respect for, like, just everything around the show and the music and all of that. And that was huge. That was just huge. And I can't, like, I talk about the band a lot, and I talk about elements of that, but there's so many people who are involved in the show and who have been working, some of them have been working with the Killers for a long time, like all the incredible visuals and lighting. Stephen Douglas, who's been working with the Killers for I think 20 years now, and he also did the Hosier show that I think a lot of you might have gone to. And then Erica, one of the backing vocalists, has been with Brandon since his solo shows. The head of security kind of came and went from the different gigs, and I was so happy to see that he was back. When I went to the tiny gig in New Orleans, I was so happy to see he was back, and I was like, are you here for the rest of the tour? And he was like, yep. Because he always takes really good care of us, and he's just like very straightforward, which is fantastic. And the security team at the 3 Arena were just amazing. They were amazing, and the VIP team at SJM are always absolutely stellar. Like, they just take such good care, and they also know that this is a really important night. Whatever night it's on, it's a really important night for the people going, and there's just like so much love there. So that's one context that I'm saying all of this in. Yeah, so the set list was different each night, significantly different opening songs, different arrangements, when the songs did repeat, like just different. He was wearing different jackets. Like there was a real specificity to each night. So I can talk about this more another time. It feels like there's kind of like an explicit theme to each night, but then there's like an underlying theme that sometimes I'm like, is this the theme of the night, or is this just how I'm experiencing it because of where I'm coming from and the things that I've lived through and all of that. And so a lot of Killer songs are about grief and loss, and about kind of looking back at times as that sort of nostalgic feeling. But there's also an important piece of context here, which is that, so my dad died, for those who don't know, my dad died when I was in California, when I was 19, and he was in London. And it was really unexpected. He had a stroke and died a couple of days later. I didn't get back in time to see him. So I left the UK, and he was alive, and I came back and he was dead. And there was also like so much admin to like figure out, and like credit card debt and just things like that, like all the horrible logistics you don't want to have to be thinking about. It felt like, especially when I look back at that time now, I had no time to process that grief at all whatsoever. I was in my final year of university, and I didn't delay that time because I didn't feel like I could, for whatever reason. I also felt like there was so much to manage, and I just had to focus. And then I had to focus on like, I've got to graduate so that I can get a job, so that I can like a like full-time job, not just. So at the time I was working at the bookshop, and then when I was in London, and then I would work at a little supermarket on campus. There was just kind of, and I was doing like bits and pieces of consulting work like that. There was all sorts going on. Looking back, I can tell that I didn't really grieve that whole first year at least. But I think for anyone, when you lose anyone and you take on, there are things to figure out, and you've got to, sell a house and be like, what the fuck is this, and why did he make this decision, and you're like dealing with all these complicated things, and you just don't have time to sit and be like, oh, this person that I've lost, who's my dad. So it really wasn't until I feel like a year later, I was like 2021, in 2021, my birthday's in August, halfway through the year. Another piece of context, this tour is also with the band Travis. They're opening for the Killers. I love Travis, and also Travis are a very foundational band for me, like in my love of like indie music, in my love of different kinds of rock music. I viscerally remember seeing the side music video come on MTV2. We had MTV2 because my sister Mariali, who loves, like, I think she's a bit of a tastemaker for a lot of types of different music that I like she, you know, would listen to JJ72 and Interpol, and like the CDs would like go missing quietly into the room next door while I listened to them all and kind of studied them. She's a massive Muse fan as well, especially like those early Muse years. She paid extra out of her pocket money so that we could have MTV2, and this was very exciting to me because it also meant we got Nickelodeon. But I think there was a level of like, because she paid for it, I felt like we should defer to her. This is my memory of it. I don't know if she remembers this. I have like a lot of very specific memories from my past that my sisters are like, really? Did that happen? I'm not totally sure about that. Anyway, so we had MTV2 in like little windows. We would have it sometimes and then we sometimes not have it. And I remember the music video for Side coming on. Wow, this is so cool with the UFO in it. I remember the Flowers in the Window music video. I remember the Sing music video. Like, I feel like I mostly experienced Travis through music videos, and also they were on the radio all the time, but like it was mostly through their music videos that I experienced them. And then I did listen to I can't remember if my sister had their album. I think she did. I think she had The Man Who and The Invisible Band. But yeah, listen to them a lot, love them. My favourite song actually is called Closer, which I didn't expect them to play because it's funny, some songs you don't know how popular they actually are, you just know that they meant a lot to you. Like, obviously the ones that were music videos were the singles, but there are some songs that like, that did have a music video, a beautiful music video. I remember it very clearly in a grocery store. But there are some songs that just mean a lot to you, and I just like that song. Every night, Travis, before they would play the song, Fran Healy, the lead singer of Travis, who's not actually called Travis himself, he would introduce the song by doing a very Mr. Rogers little speech about thinking about the people who loved you into this world, and once you've thought of someone, hold up a light. And with an awareness that Father's Day was coming, I texted one of my friends, I was like, oh my God, okay, here we go. Like, we're all going to be like, all the people who've lost a dad are going to be like waterworks. And I just had this awareness of it coming, but I try not to create too much fear around it. I used to create a lot of fear around big days like Father's Days and birthdays and so on. And I try not to kind of, make them bigger than they need to be in a way. Because it felt like a bit of a litmus test of how much I loved him, and we sometimes had a complicated relationship as well. Anyway, again, another story, sidetrack, that's a whole other video. On the day of the third show, the final show in the Dublin run, it's kind of like a mini residency almost. On that day, I had a real feeling about that night, because the first 2 nights had been so special. A couple of people saying were like, oh, they're gonna repeat like elements of the first night maybe, because there are times that they've done like 2 different set lists, and then the third night will be quite similar to the first set list. But I was like, no, I think this is going to be different. I think I just had a feeling like this is going to be different. Everything about that day was just different for me. Everything about it. I just was able to access this kind of like calm place. Very excited, but just very calm and grounded and all of that. And I was number 1 in the queue, and it was so nice getting to meet everyone in the queue, because like when I was doing the numbering system for everyone, like getting to meet people, seeing them with, you know, like their mums or their kids or their brothers or their boyfriends or their husbands or their girlfriends or whoever it was that was with them. Or by themselves as well. There was like a woman who'd come from Tokyo by herself. There's people, some people I'd met before who came up to me and were like, were you in Amsterdam 2 years ago? And I'm like, I sure was. And that was really lovely, because once we did get inside the stadium, I got my spot, asked my friend to save my spot, went and got a snack and a drink, and came back through. And it was really lovely, because I was walking back through all the people I'd met earlier that day. It just made me really, really happy. So there was that. 2 minutes before the Killers were due to come on, they're quite punctual, I was starting to notice some suspicious things. For instance, there was an extra step. The way the stage is set up, I'm going to do a whole other thing about the stage, but the way the stage is set up is that it has this like point. It's like a diamond, a Rebel Diamond. It's Rebel Diamonds tour. It has a point, and it has like 2 tracks for the cameras and a second layer of the stage further back, which is where the whole band is and the whole thing goes on. The previous nights there were moments when Brandon had stepped down onto the platforms that are below that little camera track, and either side of them are the confetti cannons, and there are also just times that he's like stepped on the track before to like walk along to the sides and so on. But there was an extra little step there and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if they're trying to make it like extra safe, or if there's some particular reason why that's happening. The other thing I noticed is that the band photographer was standing in a different place than he usually would. The head of security was, this really shows you, it's for things that I noticed like this. I noticed like, oh, I'm a very observational person. I've also been to a lot of shows, so I'm like, oh yeah, I do know more than maybe his normal lobby boy who works with the band had Brendan's tea and he was standing on the side, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why isn't that on stage? That seems like a strange place to put the tea. They've got these curtains that like obscure the stage now, which is really fun and very dramatic. Sure enough, Brandon comes out right in front of me, pokes his head out of the curtains. I'll show you pictures and video of this later. That's one of my plans for like the week off, is to like do a commentary of all my videos. It's gonna be very exciting for you. He peeks out and he steps down onto the camera track. It's a microphone that they've placed right in front of me, where the two camera tracks meet, and they put that in like 1 minute before, and I was like, oh my god, what's happening? What's going on? And he steps down onto the camera track and does this little introduction to the show, and I was like, this show is gonna be extraordinary. I can tell. It's going to be extraordinary. When they open with Brightside, you know it's going to be a killer show, because they're like, there's so much confidence in their own abilities that it's just, you're like, oh, you're going to put on a hell of a show tonight. And there's been that every single night, but I think there's something special when he opens with Brightside. I'm like, oh, he's peacock. There were several songs that really, God, meant the world to me that they played them. There's a song called Quiet Town, which is from their album Pressure Machine, which is their kind of their COVID album, which is just like a gorgeous, gorgeous album. And there's Quiet Town's one of my favourite songs in it. The lyrics in Quiet Town that go, and whenever I'm near the town, I find some reason to give, and I will walk with the dead and the living where I used to live. And there is so much in that for me. As I said before, I've been thinking a lot of this question of home, and I think being able to go back to where you used to live, or not being able to go back there. For me, so I grew up I was very lucky, grew up in the same house my first 19, 20 years. And then we sold it because I had a lot of debt on it. It had like, my dad did the equity release thing, which was just kind of disastrous. And so we sold it, and I can like go back there, but I can't go back there, you know? There are all these places that you go back to, but you can't go back. But still, whenever I'm in that area, whenever I'm near that area, I just walk around and I'm so like, I'm filled with so much feeling. I remember there was one year that I asked my friend to come with me to my dad's bench, which is along the riverside in Twickenham. And then I just kind of kept showing him things. I was like, that's my house, and this is the river, and he sat on the bench. I remember him very clearly sitting on the bench and being like, tell me, what was your dad like? And tell me about that. And that's like such a precious memory to me, because that was just so kind of him to do, and made so much space for that. It was really meaningful. There is a level of home that can't be accessed, you know, once you've sold a place. And I do find myself around the holidays sometimes getting really jealous of people who can go back to their childhood home or can access experiences, because I think the experience I'm really trying to get close to is like my dad, who died when I was so young, and who, like, I also had a complicated relationship, you know. It wasn't one of those things where it's like me and my dad were super close all the time. Like we actually weren't that close when he died, and I think that's what's part of like the heartbreak of it. So when they sang Quiet Town, I was already thinking about that a lot. They sang Here With Me, which is a song from their album Battleborn. This also requires context. Battleborn came out in September 2012. At this point, I was 21 years old. I just turned 21 the month before. This whole video is just to emphasise that my birthday is August 15th. So please, I would like tickets to the Taylor Swift show on that day. I just turned 21. I'd graduated university 2 months prior. I was living in Homerton. There was no one who could be the guarantor for my place, because I I was going from working in a bookshop to working at the big Top Man in Oxford Circus. So I was on absolute minimum wage, and I didn't have a parent who could be a guarantor. So I ended up asking a YouTube friend to be my guarantor. But I was commuting from Homerton in East London to Oxford Circus in Central London. The album Battleborn had just come out, and I didn't have enough money to take the overground and tube from Homerton, which is the quickest way to get to Oxford Circus. So it was September 2012, and I lived in Homerton on the Kingsmead estate, and I would walk to the bus stop and take the 242 from where it starts at Homerton Hospital all the way to Central London, and be in for early, mid or late shift at Top Man. And it would take 1.5 listens of Battleborn, and I would always sit on the top of the bus and listen to it, and it was just like, so be listening to it at least 3 hours a day on the commute, and then inevitably when I got home and listening to it more in the morning, listening to it more too. And that first year of grief had so much admin involved. There was so much going on that I had to do, or that I took on this responsibility for, that in retrospect was more than I should have taken. Anyone who's had to shoulder a level of both emotional and literal responsibility after they've lost a parent or someone else close to them knows it can eclipse everything else. And I didn't really grieve. And I completely lost that initial grieving period. I couldn't have that space for myself. And that's what Battleborn gave me. But there's a confluence between loss of members of the band's parents and mine. It's all kind of happened in a very similar time frame. A lot of the Killers songs in general speak a lot about grief. There are particularly songs on Battleborn that speak to a different kind of loss that really allowed me to sit with my own grief and make it just expanded the space for it. It's kind of that's why I keep using the word expansive. That's how it felt. They played Here With Me during the set on Saturday night, but other songs, another one that was just so key to me that I think all the time is Carry Me Home. Carry Me Home, and the way it was, and just this heavy feeling of, it's not heavy. I don't know why I said heavy, because it's not heavy. It's quite a light feeling, this expansion. There's more air in the room of going to the past, and it's not quite nostalgia either. It's something different. It's literally visiting the past in a dreamlike state, which is very important for later. So he sang Here With Me, which is the man's voice, extraordinary. The musical arrangements are extraordinary. Everything's extraordinary. He sang Here With Me. So we've done Here With Me, we've done Quiet Town. He introduces Dustland Fairy Tale, which he wrote about his mother, who passed away shortly before my dad passed away. He introduces that song, and he talks about how home is different for many people, but for him, home was his mother. He said, we've all lost someone, so hold up your light for someone you've lost. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, here, what a night. What a night for holding up lights for people you've lost. And again, that song always just gets me to the core. They did a little bit of Are You Lonesome Tonight? Brandon's voice on that, just unbelievable. Ronnie, the drummer, threw the drumstick and it fell right in front of me. And the security guard that I'd been talking to earlier and kind of had been talking to a couple of the days gave it to me. It was just really kind, and it's right here. It's been used, heavily used. So remembering in 2012 where I was, 2013, Killers play Wembley. They go on tour. Battleborn was this epic tour among victims. I didn't go to a single show. It's the first show for so many of the people who were big fans who I see at all these shows. Battleborn is a kind of foundational moment for so many of them. And they did all these little tiny shows in places. And I just remember I would look at the pictures on my computer and just feel so sad that I couldn't be there. He famously would do this walk across the barrier during Battleborn that he didn't ever do since. Just this tour is legendary, basically, or has become legendary from the community, from the fans, from the victims. I never got to go, and I was always very sad about that. There are a few Killers moments, which is now lessening as I've been able to go to so many, but there are a few Killers moments that I'm I wish I could have been there. I remember being on the phone to the Royal Albert Hall trying to get tickets to their show there. I couldn't make the Samstown anniversary shows. It was the weekend right before Tales All the Way Down, the book came out. We had all these events, and basically tour was kicking off, and I wanted to be there in that. And it was one of those moments where I was this is more important. This is more important to be there for them. I'm glad I made that choice, but it is always one of those things where I'm like, oh, Sam's Town was amazing. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it was. But then the Wembley Stadium show, which, yeah, they've not played since, is another kind of iconic moment. And people are always like, oh, you were at Wembley, right? And I'm like, no, I was not at Wembley. Things start to look suspicious around, I think maybe it was all these things I've done. I can't remember what it was. But there was a moment where someone started sweeping up confetti along in front of the barriers. And they don't usually do that at that point in the show. Again, this is where my like both powers of observation and familiarity with protocol made me suspicious. Then I saw the head of security quietly like getting people to take like flags off the barrier and kind of clean things up a bit. I was like, interesting. And then I kind of like, I had my Sam's Town jacket over the barrier and I kind of moved it back. And I was like, I can just keep a note of that. People started turning up in places where they wouldn't have been. But then things kind of turned back to the show and they'd gone off with the encore. I still love an encore. Some artists are getting rid of the encore, but I'm pro encore. There was a visual on the screens of clouds. We haven't seen this visual before. People are kind of starting to speculate about what it is, and there's a message about what if you could go back or something like that. People are like, is it the way it was? Like, what's going on? And I had this feeling from the moment I saw the first cloud. I was like, this is Lightning Fields. These motherfuckers are playing Lightning Fields, which is one of my favourite songs on that album, Imploding the Mirage, and one of my favourite Killer songs of all time. It has a beautiful bit of it with Katie Lang. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to play Lightning Fields the night before fucking Father's Day in this incredible show as the first song after the encore. And this visual goes on for ages. And it's just like clouds, and they start to look a bit rainy, and there's clouds and clouds and clouds, and people are like, what is it? What is it? I look over to my friend Tanya, who's like about 5 or 6 people away, and I put my hand over and I'm like, I think it's Lightning Fields. And she just goes, and sure enough, they played Lightning Fields. I didn't have any video of it because I was just like I was in it. I was in the Lightning Fields of love. And it's about being reunited with your partner who you've lost. I think it's about Brandon's parents and this idea of his dad dreaming of his mum and their conversations they would have and what she would tell him, and you know, the encouragement that she would give, like, don't beat yourself up, you laid good ground, look at and walk from scratch to sundown, you put the work in and then some, where is all this coming from? There's all that sense of like worry, oh my God, this is going to make me go off, all that sense and all that fear, and you don't have like, there are some moments where like literally only my dad's voice would do, and it can be the smallest thing, and my dad wasn't like, there were times that he was more connected to like encouragement, and there were times that he was very disconnected from it. And as I say, towards the end, like, our relationship was very complicated. But there was also, there are just these moments in your life where you're just like, I just need my dad and he's not here. And I just have to kind of become my own dad. There's so much talk online about reparenting and stuff, but I think what's lost sometimes is the emotion of that, of like taking yourself on and picking yourself, not picking yourself up in terms of like pick yourself up, but like literally picking yourself up off the floor and scooping yourself up and giving yourself a hug and becoming the adult to yourself. And that song is just, it's expansive, like everything else I've said, like it's just this expanding of this lightning field. Erica Canales, one of the vocalists, took on the Katie Lang bits, and her voice is just extraordinary. And Brandon's voice is extraordinary. And that song is all-encompassing. So I was in heaven, truly. There, I was in the lightning fields, as I keep saying. At some point, there was more confetti, and this guy comes around sweeping again. And then the photographer's in a weird place. And the head of security is in a weird place. I'm like, these motherfuckers are going to play Battleborn. Something's going to happen. And he plays Battleborn. Battleborn hasn't been played since 2013. I have never seen this song live. So I'd seen that they'd cleared this path in front of barrier. I was like, is he going to do the barrier walk? Because that is what it is feeling like he's going to do. When it gets to the bit that he comes down at the end of the stage, goes to the left to the end of the barrier and works his way back down. So not only is he coming towards me, I also get to see him say hi and thank so many of my friends. He takes my hand and he squeezes my hand. And then he steps on the step in front of me and steps over and reaches and says hi to all the people behind me, many of whom I'd met earlier that day. One family were like, oh, we saw where you were standing and we're going to stand behind you because you seem to know what's going on. They finished Battleborn and walked off, and it was just like the most stunning night. I hope that I will never forget it. A lot of people can go back to their home, but there is a home that I can't access, or it has felt like I can't access. And I've been finding home in other places, like in this flat. But I think what this night really crystallized for me is that home is also at killer shows. I feel at home there, not just because it's familiar and because I know people, but because the band, the music has created this space for me to be at home. I've mentioned this a million times before, but Lord said, I think it was in Rookie Mag, she talks about trying to create a specific sonic world. And that is what all of these shows, but especially that third night, felt like. It felt like I was in a specific world. I'd gone to another place. I'd gone to the lightning fields. And I was sitting on that bus again. Even prior to losing my dad, their songs have been with me through so many different times. I remember when my abuelita died on my Mexican side, I was in Mexico. It was, again, very sudden, very out of nowhere. It was the day after the Boxing Day tsunami, so 2004. Literally the night she died. I was listening to Hot Fuss on my Discman. And I remember playing it, like manually playing it on repeat. It's a hand-me-down Discman that belonged to my sister Mary Ali, who first introduced me to, so much of the music that I love these days. It just brought me so much comfort. And I remember so clearly these like polyester blankets that with the heat would just have the like electric sparks, these little lightning fields, having a feeling that like everything was shifting a bit. And that was a really like crucial moment, because when your parents lose parents, like you just see them in a different way. And then also when loss comes out of nowhere like that as well, there's just so many different things that happened from there. But they have always been home, and I think that's probably the thing that I also realised. The Killers have always been home for me. Going to the shows is a way to find home. Listening to their music is a way to find home. Having a song in my head is a way to find home. Running into Brand of Flowers at an airport is a way to find home. It is an extraordinary gift to give a person, to make them a home.